Hello, and welcome to the Black Teacher Voice. I'm your host, Brittney Washington, and today I have a lot to talk about. Some very interesting topics to discuss. Today I have a special guest. Lauren Jenkins is here, and I just would like to welcome you to the Black Teacher Voice. And I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Brittney, for having me. My name is Lauren Jenkins. I am a high school Spanish teacher at a local charter here in Kansas City, Missouri. And coming up this fall will be my 5th year teaching.
Amazing. Year number 5.
Yes.
Girl, I count that first year. I count student teaching.
Yes. Yeah.
I count
it. Any teacher would agree with that.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, I'm so excited to have you here today. And it's amazing now you're in high school. I remember when we first started out, you were in middle school.
Middle school, yes. Middle school ELA. Actually, so I started teaching Spanish last fall. That was my first year. I kind of took a step away from middle ELA simply because I wanted, a different experience. And this coming up fall will be my 2nd year, and I love it. I am so excited about it.
I bet. And what a shift. I know that just me learning so much Spanish from you when we were in our teacher prep program, it was just amazing because you don't see a lot of Black people that are teaching Spanish.
That is so true. And it's really cool even now when we do like PDs around the city to see other Black teachers, especially, crazy as it may sound, Black male teachers teaching Spanish. I'm like, okay, I see you. I see you. And it makes my heart smile.
Yes. Well, that is so good. So today I want you to share with our listeners what motivates you to get up and do your job in the morning.
Honestly, it is seeing other Black and brown faces and knowing that, number one, most of them, especially like with teaching Spanish, have never had a Black Spanish teacher before. So like being able to join in that experience. But then number two, the need and desire to be able to provide my kids with a quality education, especially after like the climate nationally with education and teaching from this year in the pandemic.
Yes.
That is my motivation to get up every day. Like my kids need an advocate. So yeah.
I think you bring up a great point. Just the advocacy, right? And being able to know that there is somebody there to support you.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to feel supported, right?
Yes. Oh God, after this year, most definitely the need to feel supported it's key.
Definitely. So today's topic is, what's today's topic?
Hair.
So today's topic is all about hair. Just let my hair be. Just let my hair be. Let it be how it's going to be. Natural, braids, twist out.
Let it be that.
Let it be that. It's so much a part of our identity. And I think people don't recognize that. If you're not one of us, to understand that our hair is us and makes us who we are and how we feel about our hair. I know I have some moments where I'm like, oh, that came out cute. Oh, I'm looking, you feel good, right? You look good, you feel good, you show up. But then there's some days where I'm like, oh, this did not come out right. I'm trying to put a little scarf on. I'm trying to, just have a little front part out, how to curl. Humidity, that's another thing.
Oh, Lord.
But just thinking about how our hair should just be able to be how it is and be accepted no matter what style you have. So I want to dive into this topic a little bit because I was having a conversation with a former colleague of mine who's also a friend, Black educator, super dope and talented woman. And just hearing her story and her experience of her hair just really made me reflect upon like my experiences and my hair and like my journey through hair because things change and things shift and they definitely, these experiences play a part into who you are and like how you think about your hair and your journey. So while I was talking with her, something she shared with me was that she was in middle school and she always wore her hair curly, either down or in a ponytail, or sometimes she had braids here or there, and she straightened her hair occasionally. And she shared with me that sometimes in middle school, girls would claim that she thought that she was better. I mean, she has beautiful, amazing, beautiful curls. And it's just the fact that people would think that your hair, just because of your hair, that you would think that that a person would think that they're better. And she remembered being confused about those comments, and she had never heard anybody say anything quite like that. Um, and those claims eventually turned into some type of bullying for her. And I mean, how traumatic is that as a middle schooler to feel like people are talking about or commenting on your hair, whether it's intentional or not? As a child, we don't know, but just this idea that she was experiencing bullying for just being her and having her hair in whatever style that she chose that day. And so she was able to have support from her mother, which I think is extremely important when going through things like this. And being able to navigate that and having that support is what she needed, right? I think it's really crazy to know that people go through these journeys and have differences that come up and things that you don't understand quite as much as a child, and then you kind of learn and grow and embrace your hair and your beauty. Um, and sometimes, she talked about her favorite hairstyles. Um, and people had questions for her, and students would notice similarities and differences, which, like, we see a lot of students today doing this same thing. I mean, this was like years ago for her. So just thinking about her story, it really had me thinking about, how as little young women, little small girls, how we already are starting out with this stigma or this thought about our hair. And it kind of makes you feel like, can I really embrace my hair? Or it was always like, if I wore my hair a certain way, like, would that dictate how my day would go? Would that have control over what comments people would choose to say, whether good or bad? And so I really appreciated her sharing that story because there are so many connections that we have as Black women to really think and dive deeper into this topic of hair. And don't even get me started into hair at school, because that's a part of this, right? Like, kids are still being discriminated against because of their hair. Oh, you can't come to prom. You can't join in on this. You can't have dreadlocks. You can't have any locks of any sort. Braids. Oh, you can't have that color in your hair. It's so many things that deem it unprofessional, when in reality, who has the choice to say whether it's unprofessional or not? The business, and then what does that speak to? So I just want to dive a little bit deeper. So Lauren, I would like for you to share with us a little bit about your experiences. And can you recall any experience when someone at your school, or as a child or even as an adult, has commented on your hair?
So I'm going to take you back to childhood for me and then move a little forward. Growing up, I went to predominantly white schools.
Okay.
And the school district that I ended up in, I'm from St. Louis, and we, in St. Louis, we had this program called desegregation. So it was a program where city kids were bused out to county schools. So the school that I went to had a population of, I think, like 240. And out of the 240, 40 of us were Black.
Okay.
So there was never a time in which, let me back up. Also, preface it by saying this is 1994. So all of the Black girls at my school had relaxed hair, myself included. And so for me, it was normal to have like relaxed hair with the other Black girls. However, white girls and other white students would constantly question about like, how long does it take to do your hair? And what do you put in your hair? Or when, you know, some of the Black girls would show up with braids. Oh my God, how did your hair grow overnight? You know, microaggressions. Now, as an adult, I know that's what they were. So there was that. And then also internally, I felt like I needed to look a certain way. So some of the white girls at my school would try out different hairstyles. I remember back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was like this style craze of like feather clips that you could clip in your hair. And like, okay. So I tried that phase. Looked crazy on me. Absolutely crazy. But this was the image that was portrayed to me every single day. And so I never knew what my natural hair looked like. I always had questions from the majority about like, what did it take to do your hair? And little things like I was in band and I was in choir. And on concert nights, you know, you would see all the girls who would have like their curling irons and, you know, they'd be doing each other's hair. Well, I didn't have any Black teachers. No one knew my hair. And
wow.
As a child, I remember thinking like, you know, wow, if my mom were here, like she could do it, or but there was no one who looked like me who could do my hair. And so going off, you know, fast forward, I become a teacher. And I constantly, as educators, you pull from your own personal experiences with education. Yes. Well, that example of hair and what it meant and what it symbolized stuck with me. And honestly, that was a huge reason as to why I went into education, not necessarily because of hair, but what it represented. It represented representation. For lack of a better term, it meant that someone who looked like me was able to be in front of me. And there are other Black girls. If lightning doesn't strike in a bottle. So if I had that experience, there had to be other Black girls who had that experience too. And so my second year of teaching, I did after school programs. And I remember the cheerleaders had a game and they were like running down the hallway, trying to like fix their hair. And one of them stopped in my room and she was like, I can't like get this French braid right. Can you like do this for me? And she sat down between my legs like a mama doing, and I had a moment. I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, this is full circle. And what would my educational experience have been like had I had that representation stamped for me every day? And what did that experience, even though the little girl was probably like, okay, another Black woman, I know you my hair, but for her, what did that mean? And as she was sitting in between my legs and I'm braiding her hair like a mama would braid her daughter's hair, I immediately thought, this is what that means to be able to have someone who understands your cultural walk and your cultural experience. So more than that, hair is a part of like our identity. It's also a way in which we can live authentically because culturally for us, our hair is how we identify ourselves. You know, it's the ability to be able to change at a moment's notice, but then also it's our way to express authentically who we are. My personal choice to go natural 13 years ago even more made it so I was aware of like, okay, this is how I show up in the world.
Yes.
Girl, it's a whole nother world when you are natural in a classroom. And I remember wearing my hair in a twist out and having one of my students come up to me and like, how did you get your hair to do that? What products did you use? Like, but being able to share in that and to know that this girl sees herself in me and that if I am living my life authentically, then it is giving someone else the privilege to be able, or the courage rather, to be able to show up authentically in theirs. And that's amazing.
It's amazing. 100% amazing. I know I've had experiences where I also too was perm years ago, and I asked my mom just recently, like, "Mom, so why did you perm my hair? Like, where did it come from? Like, what made you make that decision?"
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "You know what, Brittney? I don't know." And so I had to learn later on in life. I had actually met a girl who I now call my sister, my big sister, and she was natural. And just to see her beautiful curls, and I also had those questions for her as young adult. And I asked her, like, how do you do that? What should I do? Like, I have permed hair. And she was like, Britt, you should just stop perming it.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that advice from another Black woman to be like, you know what? Yes, like I'm going to stop perming my hair and I'm going to decide to go natural. Like, because if your curls are looking like that and I want to get curls. And as soon as I did that and I started to feel in the back, I was like, oh, my hair is getting curly while it's wet. Something that I had always dreamed of when I was younger, for my hair to get wet and to like know that it's curling, not for it to get wet and then it like be straight. Because when I was younger too, just seeing images, in the media or on TV or just anywhere where it's like beautiful curls, but it wasn't girls that looked like me. It was like white girls that had beautiful curls. And for me, I had to understand that I can have that. I can have beautiful curly hair. But as a child, I didn't know that because I always had permed hair. I mean, that I can recall from 8 to 9 years old, and throughout middle school and high school, just knowing that I was trying different styles, but it would always be straight hair. And so making that choice to do the big chop, I was like, I'm doing it. And I did it and I felt so good about it. And I had some moments where I was like, oh, this might be kind of like that ugly phase because it was short. It was too short to go in ponytail, but too long. I mean, not too long. And going through that journey of just feeling like I'm cutting off all of my hair, and this is a part or has been a part of me, to be able to have beautiful natural hair that has no chemicals in it. And to feel good about it and to have an understanding of what products work, what products don't work. Humidity, understanding humidity in general is just a big thing.
It's a huge thing.
And when you get around people that have the privilege to just wash their hair and just kind of go with their day, and they don't have a second thought about, okay, how is this going to affect my hair? Or sometimes they do, but just generally speaking, like, it's so much that goes into whether or not my hair turns out to be great or not. But I would say it was one of the best decisions that I've made. And then to see my hair continuously grow and develop and just really train the curls, I started to feel more comfortable in being able to do my hair and have my hair. But I would run into this, and let me ask you and see your perspective. Whenever I would have a big interview coming up, I would immediately say, I got to do my hair. And I would get out those flat irons and start my hair. But why was I doing that? Because I was thinking in my mind, this is the way that I know that I will be seen as professional. This will make me look more, just it makes you look more like how they want you to look.
Right.
And then I ask myself, who is they? But have you ever had that experience where you have something that's of a special occasion or something that's like a big interview where you're like, I need to straighten my hair for this event?
Of course. What Black woman has not, from, the times in our childhood where our mamas would straighten our hair for like Easter or Christmas.
Get that pressing curl, girl.
Sitting up all night or getting up early in the morning and seeing that comb sitting on the stove. You knew what time it was. Horrible question. But I mean, from that early age, associating, straight hair with special occasions, it takes a lot of unlearning. It does. And that is, because of the internalized racist view that we have had as Black people, about what beauty is, standards of beauty, and beauty being associated with a more Eurocentric look. I think one of the key words that you said earlier was choice. And I think choice is the most liberating thing that you can give a person, or that we as human beings have. As an adult, I have found myself on so many occasions, not only prior to going natural, but even after returning back to natural, because natural is what comes out of our head. But even after returning to natural, finding myself when I had special occasions to go to or job interviews, busting out my flat iron or trying to make an appointment for a silk press, and having to, back then, not necessarily question it, but now having to say, well, why? And not only why do you feel like you need to do that, Lauren, but who gets to define what professional looks like? Yes. I have found it extremely, for lack of a better term, it's always been funny to me how someone can tell me what grows out of my head naturally isn't professional. How do I then change an aspect of me? Like, this is a part of me, and this is how it authentically comes out of my head. How dare you say it isn't natural? And so now, when I have like professional meetings or I have special occasions, I have a choice. I can choose to straighten my hair if I want to, or I can choose to rock a bomb twist out with some pins like up to the side. I mean, there's so much power in choice. And so recognizing, well, where does that stem from? And then having to question your own biases, like unconscious biases of, is this beautiful? It has taken a while. It is, and it's a daily walk. It is a daily walk. And I find myself, even though like I am definitely not where I was, it's continuously having to have that conversation internally of like, well, who gets to determine what professional looks like for you? And your hair is how it is naturally, how it comes out of your head. So whatever you choose to show up as on a special occasion, it's still the special occasion, And even more so now that I have a daughter who is biracial, and having to basically walk it like I talk it and be able to say, like, my hair texture is nothing like my daughter's. It is not. My daughter has like 3B loose curls. I definitely have 4B, 4C going on.
Yes.
And having to embrace my natural hair and find the pride and find the beauty in it allows me to be able to model that for her. So yes, I can't think of a single woman who hasn't gone through that. I need to go ahead, but then it's asking yourself, why? Why? And is this how I am choosing? Am I making the conscious decision to show up this way? Or am I doing this because this is what has always been told to me is the standard of beauty? And if it's the latter rather than the former, then begin to question that.
Yeah, you got me over here thinking, and it's just amazing, even that point of just having the choice and to be able to make that decision. But I do now say, well, why? But I didn't have that thought years ago.
No.
It was just, I was doing what it was. And another amazing key point that you made too, Lauren, is unlearning. Like unlearning some of those things that we have going on in our internal dialogue of, oh, should I wear it like this or should I not? Or is this how I want to present myself? And I find it to be very controversial at schools, now being an educator, and just knowing that there are children who are going through and experiencing these times where people are either commenting on their hair, or kids wanting to touch other kids' hair, and just like getting kids to understand that, one, that's a personal boundary. And we don't do that.
Mm.
And I even today on Instagram, just scrolling through, saw a woman, and it was like a TikTok moment, right?
Mhm.
A woman just standing in the bathroom, and a white lady comes up to her, like trying to put her hands in her hair. And she's like, no,
Oh.
like, no. But the fact that you have to explain to people that that's just something that you don't do. I know I've watched several videos online seeing how students or, children are the one. I don't know if you saw this. This was floating around a few years ago. A kid who was at the wrestling match.
Yes.
And, in order for him to play, was cutting up his dress, cutting off his hair publicly in front of people. I mean, I could almost start crying for this young man in the video.
Imagine how traumatizing.
Definitely. And it's like, at what point do people recognize that it's not just hair, but it's a part of us? And I know that they are doing so much work out here, especially with the Crown Act, trying to get that passed in several states. And I know it's been around, since 2019, but even within this short amount of time, it's only been passed in a few states.
Right.
Because there has been so much discrimination within like jobs and discrimination of, your hair, and how people can just get almost like a free pass and get away with the discrimination. Whether or not somebody has dreadlocks or, beautiful hair, however they decide to wear it and make that choice. But there is a big problem in our world where people are facing this traumatizing, just this feeling of, can you be yourself without trying to fit this standard of beauty? And you should be able to fit yourself and be yourself. I know even at school, I had conversations with some of my students and some of my colleagues too. Like, sometimes it'll be like, oh, Miss Washington, oh, your hair looking cute today, or I wish I had curls like you, or and I would think to myself, like, is this person being genuine, or is this just the only thing that they feel like they can say? Because to me, I'm like, oh, so what you saying? I'm not cute when I don't have my hair straight? Or like, what are you trying to say here? But getting to hear people's perspective and understand that sometimes people envy that. Some people envy the fact that we can do so many different things to our hair unapologetically, right? We can wear it. We have that choice to be able to do that. And so, what advice would you have, Lauren, for any Black person that's entering into education, or just any Black person that may be listening to this podcast on hair? What advice would you share with them for their natural hair?
I would honestly share two pieces of advice. The first being to look inside of yourself and examine your own unconscious biases and examine your own internalized voices that play in your head regarding, how do I show up in the world as a Black woman? We really have to knock those down, question the heck out of them before we can then present ourselves in front of a room of Black students. Because if you are able to live your life authentically and question the different views that have been placed upon us, then it's easier to be able to advocate for another student, which would then be my second point. I think not only as Black educators do we have a responsibility to our students to make sure that they have like the most quality education that they can possibly receive, but we are also their own advocates. And there are a lot of people who do not understand that for us as Black people, hair is not just hair. Hair is an extension of our identity. Hair is a means of self-expression. Hair is a way in which we are able to show up in the world authentically. And so if you as an educator, if we are able to like recognize our own internal biases, we can then see those microaggressions as they pop up in our classrooms or in our PD sessions or in our hallways with teachers who are not of color, who do not understand side note, and then I'm going to get back to that point. I had at a former school that I worked at, there was a little girl. She was a 6th grader, and she had beads in her hair. And for Black women, like, that's a rite of passage. We all know. We have all worn them. We have fond memories of that. Well, this particular girl was in another teacher's class, and the teacher had the audacity to ask this little girl, is there any way that you can make those beads a little quieter? Why?
No.
And I just so happened to hear as I was walking in my own classroom. And so it took me aback. And later I had to, approach that particular teacher and have a conversation with her about, not only was that
Not okay
on so many levels, but then culturally, this is what this means to us. And you have no room, right, or position, to question or to even ask this little girl to make these beads quieter. This is an extension of her hair. So that advocacy piece is only able to come into play when you yourself are able to question, okay, what are some of the the voices or the pre-recorded messages, for lack of a better term, that I have been told about hair? In what ways how do I view my own hair? How do I view my own hair? I think it's really easy, especially as Black women, for us to say, well, I just wear my hair this way because I like it. And for some people, that truly is. But if you wear your hair a certain way, not because you like it, but because, it's what's always been told or taught. Also, the idea now that natural hair and this return to natural hair is becoming more and more popular. It's becoming more and more widely accepted. So I think on some ends of the spectrum, it's easier to be able to show up if that's what you choose to do. But on other ends of the spectrum, it's still something that people, again, it's unlearning messages that we've been told for centuries about what is beauty, and trying to unlearn beauty as it pertains to like a Eurocentric norm or standard rather. So I think for Black educators, it's those two things. You have to, because most of our students, and also now with the expansion of like social media and that presence that it has, most students now are able to say or able to recognize, look, my hair is a part of me. And just as you wouldn't, I'm not on display. I'm not, something that you can just go up and touch. No, this is a part of my body.
Right.
And so most students now, especially my Black girls, I'll let them know, if somebody asks to touch your hair, no.
Yeah.
No. You don't get to just pet me. I'm not a dog. I'm not an exhibit at a zoo. You get to admire from afar, but what you don't get to do is invade my personal space because this is curious to you. Okay, well then look at that from afar. But that's advocacy. That's advocacy.
Yes, man. These podcasts just get me all in the feels. And I hope that for people that are listening, that it allows you to ask yourself those questions about your own self, and to also be able to advocate and educate others on these topics. Because I've had times where other colleagues of mine have come to me and asked me, how should I have handled this situation? And are looking to learn. And looking to have a better understanding. And so it's like, yes, good for those people that want to learn, but it's also like, it's much more deeper than this. And it plays a part into so many people's lives, whether it's as a professional, not even just in education, corporate world. It plays into a fact of women who are in sports, children. I mean, even the baby that the teacher was cutting her hair. Like, in what right mind would you even have the audacity to do that? So children,
yes,
little babies, it's in so many areas of life. And so I hope for all of our listeners today, my hope is just that you take some time to understand yourself, understand others, know that difference is good and difference is okay, and not having the answer or understanding is okay. But going out and seeking for those answers and seeking the truth and hearing multiple perspectives, not just one person or because you have that one black friend,
Mm.
but really seeking out for a better understanding. So that's my hope for all of you out there. And before we end this, Lauren, what is one word that you want listeners to reflect on this week?
I would love for your listeners to reflect on the word authentically and continue to question, what does it mean for you? For you, emphasis on you, not what anyone else would try to, put upon you what it means, but for you to discover what that means for yourself and to live it.
Yes, live it, love it, do it. Just be you. And you know what? To end this podcast, we're just gonna end it on just let my hair be. Just
Just
let
let
it
it
be. Whatever it's gonna be, let it be.
be.
Thanks, Lauren, for being here.
Thank you for having me.